Hello everyone, welcome to our Risk Management School. My name is Nicola and I'm a member of the Pirani team. I'm excited to be here with you today to explore the theoretical and practical aspect of the different topics that we will see. To help us delve into this session, we have with us Alejandro Orrego, CEO at Pirani. Hi Alejandro, how are you?
Hi Nicole, hi everyone.
You are on. Well, Alejandro, in this session we have how to manage our risks, our organization risks, and I'm excited to hear about this topic. So, before we begin, I would love to invite everyone to continue learning about the world of risk management by visiting the Pirani Academy, where will you find valuable learning materials. I leave the link in the chat now so you can see the website. So here you there. And finally, if you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to make them through the question and answer section, and we'll be happy to answer them at the end of this webinar. Now let's begin with this exciting topic. Over to you, Alejandro.
Okay, thank you, Nicole, and thank you, everyone. Oh, I seen in the chat that Kushan from Mauritius. Oh, amazing, very far away. What time is there? Kushan and hello, I see Sander. I remember Sander from the last session, the masterclass, 7 p.m. Well, we are in Colombia right now, and here is 10 a.m. Okay, thank you very much to joining us. So we are in the risk management school. In the last session, remember we talked about the risk management cycle, and one of the first chapter, the first step is identify context. So in the whole risk management school, this season of the risk management school, we're going to talk about the risk management cycle. So the last school, we talk about the identifying context and with specific processes. So we talk about the process map, the macro processes, the categories. So today we want to keep talking about the identifying context, but we're going to dive into risks, the next step. And we're also gonna move across the second phase, the second chapter about measure risk. So I hope we're gonna have the time to do all this in this risk management school, and in the next schools, the next masterclass will be to cover the full risk management cycle. So let's start with the definition of risks. And I want to work, this is the definition that I like the most, is based on ISO 31000. And in the context of risk management, risk is defined as the effect of uncertainty on objectives. The effect of uncertainty on objectives. This means that risk is the possibility of an event or situation occurring that could have an impact on the achievement on the organization's goal and objectives, right? So risk can be seen as the likelihood and potential consequences of a threat or opportunity. And I want you to take this in count. The risk is not only negative things. Risk is take opportunities and things that you can do in your company to grow or to be a better company. Companies that do not take risks are companies that do not grow. So these concepts are very important. But maybe you want to work with a more specific definition of risks in a more specific context. So I also bring you two definitions, or strategic risk and operational risk, because there are many risk definitions or the risk categories, depends on the risk management that you want to do. For instance, if you're going to do anti-money laundering, maybe the definition of the risks or the approach of the risk is going to be different. So today we're going to talk about the broad definition of risks, and in a strategic risk definition refers to the potential of negative impact on an organization's ability to achieve its strategic objectives. So as you can see, it's very aligned with the ISO 31000 definition. It is the risk associated with the organization overall strategy, including its business model, goals, and approach to achieve them. And the definition of operational risk is defined as the risk or loss resulting from inadequate or failing internal processes, people, systems, or external events. We're going to explain it a little bit more later. So this can include risks associated with a wide range of activities, such as financial reporting, information technology. So we're going to work with these two definitions. So if we're talking about the risk is the effect of uncertainty on objectives, and in the last masterclass we talked about the definition of process, and we talk about the process have a component that input, activities, and output. A very good starting point of identifying the risk of my company will be, what is the output that we want in our processes? What is the outcome? What is the result that we want of our processes, of our missional processes? If we don't get in those outputs, that's the first risk that we want to achieve or we want to address, right? But this is not the only thing to take in mind, because there are risk factors that we also should consider. In operational risk management, for example, there are people. This includes risks relating to human mistakes, misconduct, fraud, inadequate training, or supervision of employees. People are not machines. People, all of us can make mistakes. So these are risks for the company. Of course, we want to address the processes risks. This includes risks related to errors and inefficiencies in business processes, inadequate documentation, failure to comply with policies or regulations. We also need to talk about systems or technology. These risks are related to technology failures, cyber attacks, data breaches, inadequate information technology infrastructure. Maybe we have a technology supplier that crash, or maybe the server get down. Those risks we can put it on our risk management. Of course, we have external events, legal or regulatory. This should be environmental and reputational. So we also can address risks in internal and external. What is this approach? There are risks within the organization itself. There are risks that I can mitigate or I can see in the first hand, like human error, like fraud, like information security breaches, like inadequate processes or controls, like system failures or system of my own, like culture and conduct, a toxic or dysfunctional corporate culture or behavior that is inconsistent with the organization values or ethical standards can result in a range of risks. But we also have external risks that are outside the organization, and because of that are beyond our control, like natural disasters, like hurricanes, flood, earthquakes, wildfires. We can be affected by that. Maybe we need to send a product and there is a natural disaster and I can send it, or my clients have offices in a natural disaster area. So of course, these risks can affect our company. We have political events Of course, there are different contexts in different contexts and countries, but political instability can affect any company. It's not the same to have a company, I don't know, right now in Miami. It's not the same political events that in New York, and it's definitely is not the same political events that Ukraine or Russia, right? Economic factors like recessions, inflation, currency fluctuations, interest rate changes, of course, can affect our company. Competitive factors like new market entrants, disruptive technologies. For instance, maybe Google right now has the risk of the entrance of ChatGPT, right? And in technology, these competitive factors as a very important risk. Supply chain disruptions, like the availability, of course, of raw materials, or maybe, I don't know, because of the war in Ukraine, there are some material that I cannot import, or we cannot buy it. So, of course, there is a risk. Legal and regulatory changes relating to laws and regulations. Maybe the regulation in my country or in my industry changes next year, or maybe they require me to do something that they do not require me last year, and I need to address that. And of course, public health. Maybe this external risk was not very interesting 5 years ago, but of course, after pandemic, like COVID, of course, affect the business continuity of many businesses, right? So if we can have this approach of external risks and internal, we're talking about the context. It's not only to have my processes, very understanding of my processes, but it's about the context of my company. We have to look inside my company, inside my processes. This is the first step. Of course it is, but we also need to understand the context of my company in every one of these aspects or areas, right? So there is a simple method to identifying risks. We can talk about brainstorming. Because if we starting doing risk management in the company, and I already have my process map, and maybe I already have my context, what we can do to start doing risk management before to identify and put in a name or the risks. Maybe we can make a brainstorming, and it's a simple and effective method to identifying risks. We're gonna talk with the risks owners, with the process owners, with the CEO, with the team, to understand what's happening, or maybe we're gonna talk even with my providers or my clients, or maybe with a consultant, or maybe with my lawyers, to understand what is going to happen in the regulatory aspects. There is another method called like the SWOT analysis, like the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Like, because the invitation is understand what do you have inside your company, but also what you have outside. What is the threats or opportunities beside your company? And again, it's not always going to be negative things, because our regulatory changes can be good or bad. Maybe a regulatory change in the laws is going to affect me in a positive way, because maybe I will be able to export more, or I will going to be some benefits because of that. So this is not only in negative way, and it's very important to understand that. Maybe we can do a checklist in the third method. Can be used to identify risks in specific areas for the company. For example, a safety checklist could be used to identify potential safety risks. Of course, we can have expert interviews. As I told you, maybe in my team, we're gonna talk with them, but maybe we can invite to an expert in, I don't know, in environmental things or in legal stuff, or in with a doctor to understand. It depends of the mission or the context of my company. And of course, it seems to be obvious, but the observation is always going to be a very good starting point. Observing the company's processes and activities can also be a simple way to identify risks. And always remember, like I told you the last masterclass, the 3 lines on defense. No one knows better the process or the operation of the company like the people that runs that operation. So the first line of defense, if you want to talk about the risks of the technology process, talk with the technology team. If you want to identify the risks of the, I don't know, the sales process, of the marketing process, talk with the sales and marketing team. So this is the brainstorming or this external interview or the checklist or whatever. They know the process and in consequence the risks. But you are, or in this case, the risks and compliance team is the second line of defense. Like they run like something like a psychologist. They're going to do the right question to the first line of defense. They're going to talk with them. They're going to ask them questions to trying to understand the process and of course the risks associated. And then the third line of defense will be internal audit that will going to understand with a wider approach everything that is going or happening in the company. So remember this. And then once you understand the process of your company and the context of your company, maybe you want to identify and associate a risk with the process. So this will be the next step. Once I understand the context of my company, I understand the processes, internal and external, and I identify the risks, we can link them. We're going to see an example in a risk management software how we can do this. And also it's important to understand that a process can have different risks associated. Maybe it's not only one. It may be in the process of, I don't know, selling my products in the foreign countries. There are an economic risk, political risk, a supply disruption risk. So maybe a single process can link or can associate different risks. So this is important to take in mind. And again, maybe there are risks that are opportunities. It's not only negative things. So once we identify the processes and the risks of my company, the next step will be measure it, right? So we talk about the identifying context, processes and risks, and now we're going to measure the risks. That will be the second step in the risk management cycle. So how can we do this? Well, there's also different methods to do this, but one of the simplest is the impact and likelihood of the risks. Impact, so we identify one risk. So maybe my company is a company that produces and sells and delivers pizza, and maybe one risk is not will be able to put the pizza on my client's table. As simple as that. And what is the impact of that risk? So the impact refers to the potential consequences or effects of a risk event on our organization objectives. Remember the definition of ISO 31000. The impact can be positive, an opportunity, or negative, a threat, and can affect various aspects of the organizations, such as financial performance, reputation, safety, or environmental factors. We're going to see a specific example of this. And we also want to take and count the likelihood. Likelihood refers to the probability or chance of a risk event occurring. It is a measure of the frequency or occurrence of the risk and can be expressed qualitatively low, medium, high, or quantitatively a percentage of frequency rate. So once we have these two factors, but remember that the impact can be direct, the direct approach. So the impact of a specific risk won't be able to put the pizza on my client's table will be high or critical or severe or low or medium, but we also can take into account impact variables like operational. So if I cannot deliver the pizza that I produce, maybe it will be an impact operational. So the impact of a risk can also affect company operational efficiency, such as through supply chain disruptions, equipment failures, or cyber attacks. But maybe we can also have a financial impact performance or a reputational. What going the market say about me if I do not fulfill my mission, or we can not do what I promised to do, or the legal and regulatory. There is an impact. I'm going to have fines or penalties if that risk occurs. We also can an environmental impact. Okay, maybe I am a manufacturing company, and maybe I have I don't know, one of my material were on a river, or I'm contaminating the air, or I'm contaminating the water in my neighborhood. I don't know, whatever can happen. This will have an environmental impact, but we also will have an legal, a regulatory, and also a reputational impact. So maybe we need to have all these different approach. Or maybe we have a health and safety impact. Maybe I have my employees in a company or in my production plant, and we have a lot of noise, and maybe this noise in the process of my company is affecting the health and safety of my employees. And that's a risk that can affect the health and safety of my collaborators, but also my reputational is a reputational impact. So we also going to see how we can do this in our risk management software. And once we take in mind the likelihood and the impact, then there is a very known asset in the risk management that is the risk heat map. The risk heat map is a visual representation of risks that uses a color code matrix to illustrate the likelihood and impact of different risks. The matrix typically has a vertical axis representing likelihood and the horizontal representing the impact. And the use of color coding make it easy to identify risks that require more attention or resources. Because maybe if I have, I don't know, 100 processes or whatever number I have, and we're going to identify 200 risks of my company. So the next 10 is, okay, you're going to address all the risks at the same time, or you need to prioritize and put more attention and resources in one of them. And that's why we need a risk heat map to understand what are those risks that I need to address immediately or with more attention. So in a more graphic way, so maybe I identify a risk here, and maybe I want to make my risk heat map. Maybe I can do a 4x4 or 5x5. So the likelihood is the first step will be remote, almost never happen, and unlikely, impossible, unlikely. But maybe I want to do a risk heat map or matrix like 5x5. As many as you need. It's not a single recipe. I mean, the most common is 5x5, but again, you can do as you need. And of course, the impact, the minor, moderate, major, severe. And when I put a risk and I measure the likelihood, and I'm going to say, okay, the risk of not delivering the pizza on time, the likelihood would be unlikely, almost never happen. But the impact that I'm going to have in here will be major, because the confidence of my clients or my reputation or whatever. So in this case, my risk will be located here in the risk heat map, right? And of course, I need to understand what is the color of my risk heat map. I need to define the risk level. So what is for me a risk level low, medium, high, or critical? Or maybe I'm going to do only with 3 colors or 4 or 5 or whatever. And I want to understand, okay, if the likelihood is here and the severity is here, so this one in red will be the most critical and the risk that I need to focus on the first time. And maybe if I have a risk that is in green, I don't have to put as that many resources or time to address it, right? But we're going to see about the addressing the risks in the next step. But right here, we need to understand what is my risk and measure it in a risk heat map. And then once we have the evaluation or the assessment of the risk, and we can put the risk in the risk heat map, I'm going to have the inherent risk. That refers to the level of risk that exists in a process, activity, or system before any risk management or control measure are applied. So this is the theory of this masterclass here. Now we're going to see this in the software, but what we're going to see in the next masterclass, in the next risk management school. Because once we have the risks located in the risk heat map, now we're going to talk about what I can do with that risk. And this is called the risk treatment. One is avoidance, the risk. This involves taking steps to eliminate the risk altogether. For example, if a company decides to avoid the risk of a certain product line, it may choose to discontinue that product line entirely. Maybe I want to land my company in Russia or in Ukraine. And then I saw the risk, the potential risk, or open a headquarter of operation in Russia, for instance. And maybe I want to avoid that risk. And the way to avoid that risk is not opening the headquarters. But this is only one treatment that you can do. And again, companies that do not take risks are companies that do not grow. Or maybe I want to mitigate those risks. That is involves taking steps to reduce the likelihood or impact of the risks. For example, if a company identifies a cybersecurity risk, it may implement additional security measures to reduce the likelihood of a cyber attack. But we can also transfer the risk. This involves transferring the risk to another party, such as an insurance company. For example, a company may purchase insurance to transfer the risk of a natural disaster or other event that could result in financial losses. So, because remember the internal and external risks, we can do a lot of things to mitigate internal risks or because of processes of people. But what we can do about our disaster, I cannot change that. I cannot change the weather, but there are insurance for that. So maybe those risks we can transfer. But I cannot transfer every single one of my risks. And we can accept some risks. This involves accepting the risks without taking any further action. This may be appropriate if the likelihood and impact of the risks are deemed to be low, or if the cost of mitigating the risk is greater than the potential impact. There are risks that I can embrace, and that's okay also. But if I choose to mitigate the risks, we're going to do something like this. We have a control to move the risk in my risk heat map So the inherent risk was here. And maybe the risk is, okay, I have a delivery man to deliver the pizza. So a risk can be that the delivery have an accident in the motorcycle, for instance. Well, I can do controls to mitigate the risks. So maybe I can put a helmet or a security attire, and maybe we're going to reduce the impact of an accident, for instance, right? So once we have controls linked to my risks, if I want to mitigate them, we're going to have the residual risks. And basically, this is risk management. To have the context of my company, to list the risks that can affect my objectives, and treat those risks in order to achieve the goals of my company. So we're going to dive into the next step in the risk management cycle will be strategies. So the next risk management school, we're going to talk in deep about the strategies. But today we're going to focus again on the measure of the risks, right? And let me back. We're going to see the practice of the identifying risks and measure risks in a risk management software. So Nicole put you in the chat that you can create a Pirani account in just 2 minutes. So we can do the exercise together. I think that the best way to understand a lot of concepts of everything, not only in risk management, is doing risk management. So please, if you have the time, if you can try to create the Pirani account, and you can put it in the chat if you already have the account, or if you need help with that. Nicole gladly will help us. So we're going to do this identifying risks and measure risks on a risk management software with Pirani. And remember, Pirani is a very, very good software to do risk management, not only because we say so, because Gartner in Capterra say so. We have 2 years in a row as one of the best risk management software globally. We were in the shortlist of 2022, and we just be in the shortlist of 2023, and we also are front runners in Software Advice 2022 and 2023. And in G2, we are one of the best operational risk management. We are the leader in the quadrant of leaders and best relationship. So you are in a good hands if you want to try this practice in risk management with us. So remember that in the last risk management school, we talked about processes. We created the processes of my company in the software or in the document that you have. We have all the processes. So remember, this is just the first step. So now we're going to create the risks. And remember that, okay, we can start from what is the outcome of the process in order to create the risks. So here we have a already created risks. And as you can see, maybe a risk is geopolitical risks. And I have the inherent risk is high, and the residual risk is low. But let's start from the beginning, and let's create some risks from zero, from scratch. So maybe we already have the brainstorming or the interview, or you already know very well my process, or I'm very aware of the context of my company. So I want to create the risks here. So in Pirani, for instance, we have 2 options. We can create, okay, maybe our risk will be a hurricane. I don't know if this is an external event. But if you don't know how to start, we can always suggest a risk, because we understand that facing the blank page is not very easy sometimes if you're new in risk management. So we are connected with ChatGPT, with intelligential AI. So maybe you can choose the industry that you work with. So I don't know if you want to put it in the chat or in the question and answers. What industries are you here to put a more specific risks? Okay, someone put it in the health industry, and I want to choose what the process of the health industry can affect. Maybe the marketing process or the customer service. So I'm going to click the suggest. So basically we are connecting with the information of ChatGPT so they can suggest a list of risks that I can use in the risk management of my company. So that's very helpful in a risk management software, and in the context of operational risk management. So for instance, technical failures or glitches in risk system may result in disruptions in customer service, or lack of robust disaster recovery plan may lead to significant operational disruptions. Okay, inadequate training of employees on risk system may lead to errors or database. So maybe I can choose the rigs that suggest me ChatGPT, or maybe I can create the rigs by myself, right? So maybe I put the name, I put a description. Maybe I want to have an evidence of that. And now will be the next step, that is measure these risks. Because right now we only have the name of the risks, that inadequate training of employees will be a risk. So I can put the direct measure, the direct rating. Okay, what is the impact of that? Maybe it will be major. What is the likelihood of that? I don't know. I don't have an onboarding process for my employees, so maybe that will be very likely. So once we rate my risks based on my context, because again, this rating is not going to be the same in every single company. It depends of the knowledge that you have for your company, the understanding that you have for your company. So once we measure these risks, as you can see in the heat map, we have the inherent risks in real time, right? And we can associate these risks with one of my processes, right? So maybe I will going to associate to, I don't know, administrative process, management process, marketing process. I think that risk is very wide, and I can use it in everyone. So maybe I'm going to risk with this process, associate with this process, and I'm going to create the risks, right? So inadequate training of employees will be one of my risks. And as you can see, I have the inherent risk in height, and the residual risk is in height, because we still not have any control to mitigate that risk. So that's why we have the residual risk. But what if we want to measure the risk with different variables, like as I teach you before? Why, if I want to understand that the impact of environmental will be different in health and safety, so we can also set that. It depends of the maturity level of your company. So I'm going to the settings of the software. I'm going to risk rating in operational risk management. And as you can see, here is the rating type direct, but I'm going to put by variables. And I can choose whatever variable I need in my company, with the description that is linked to my company reality, with my company context. For instance, I'm going to measure the financial performance or the financial impact of a risk. So maybe I got to put the weight of 20%, or only one, or only we want to have two variables. That is okay. as many variables as you need. In this case, we have financial, reputational, health and safety, environmental, and legal and regulatory. And we can also put descriptions in what is the financial impact in my company if that risk occurs. In this case, for my company, the minor impact will be losses under $100, and impact moderate will be losses between $100 and $1,000, and critical will be losses over $100,000. But you can change the different range for your company or different currencies. I mean, whatever you need. So we're going to save this. Well, and there's another question that you need to answer. In the measure of the risk, once I have the 5 variable impacts, I want to take the calculation on average or the highest rating, because maybe everything is low, but only the financial is critical. So we want to have the average for the 5 or the critical. If everyone is low, but the financial is critical, we're going to go with the critical. You can choose on average or the highest rating. And once we choose this, we can do also that in likelihood, but let's just see in the impact. So once we have that, now if we're going to create a different risk, for instance, I don't know. Let's go into with the product contamination. As we can see, we can rate the impact, not only the direct approach, but okay, what would be the financial impact if I have a contamination in a product? Maybe it will be major, but what will be the reputational impact if I do that? Okay, maybe it will be critical. Remember that we don't put description, but you can put, okay, what will be the description of a critical impact if you have a contamination product? What will be the health and safety? Maybe it will be severe. What will be the environmental risks of a product contamination? Maybe it will be moderate. Or what would be the legal and regulatory? Maybe it will be critical. And the likelihood will be direct. And once we have all the variables impact and the likelihood, we're also going to have the inherent risks in my risk heat map. So I really recommend if you are new in the risk management, do the risk measure direct. But if you want to try a different approach, you want to reduce the subjective of the measure of the risk, do it in this way. I think this will be better, right? And remember that you won't going to associate these risks with the process. So I want to link with the deliver food, for instance, in this case, and create. So in this case, the product contamination has an inherent risk in high. And because remember, we don't have any change in the residual risk because we don't have a strategy risk management yet. We don't have associate any control yet. And then if we all have all these risks in my company, all the risks that I can identify in my company, that's why the risk heat map is for. So to understand what risks do I have in my company. So in this case, we have a risk heat map of 5 per 5, minor, moderate, major, severe, and critical. Remember, you can put any name in your case. So in this case, we have a lot of process. We only have one process in the critical area, the red one. We don't have any processes in the green area and the low risks. So if you have a lot of risks to address, how can you start to risk management this? Maybe you want to look at this, the data breach, and what is the processes that you have, right? So this is a very useful tool to understand how can we start to do my risk management in order to we can do everything at once, right? So this is basically the content that we have for you today. Remember that once you associate controls with the process, with the risk, sorry, you will have the residual risk. That will be this. So remember that we have the inherent risks in this case in my risk heat map, and then after the controls that we put them, we move, as you can see, we move a lot of risks to the green area because of the controls that we create to mitigate those risks. So this will be we're going to dive into risk management strategies in the next risk management school. So today masterclass was about this. This was about how to measure and how to put the risks in the risk heat map. So we have 15 minutes to questions and answers. There's anything that you can see on the software, or there's anything that you want to deep into the presentation?
Yeah, Alejandro, they sent me an internal question, so I will tell you. Okay, John asks us about what methodology do you recommend to identify risks?
Well, I put this. I have this.
We have a different methodology, but he wants
to. I mean,
to know
what is the best?
Yeah.
It depends, because remember that you maybe to understand the internal risks of your company, the best way is to talk with the people of your company, like in the 3 lines of defense. So maybe the brainstorming will be work very well to understand the internal risks of your company, because you're talking with the technology team, with the marketing team, with the operational team, and that will be amazing. If no one understands better the processes and in consequence the risks, that them. But maybe won't be the same case if you want to address the external risks with the technology team. So maybe in that scenario, will be better to have an expert interview or just observation. I mean, but maybe right now is not very difficult to understand that the political context in Colombia is not very good. And maybe you don't need to have an extended interview with an external advisor, right? So it depends of the risks that you want to address. But if I want to choose only one, I will go with the SWOT analysis, because this is basically have the wider approach. Because when you understand your strength, what are the strengths of your company, of your processes, but the weaknesses as well that are internals, but then you're going to address the opportunities that are external, what I can do to grow my company, to land in new markets or whatever, will be very interesting. And of course, the threats are external. So if I want to choose one, I will go to SWOT analysis.
Super. Sebastian says, who should be in charge of identifying risks in an organization?
That's a very good question. Of course, I'm very, I don't know, very in love with the 3 lines of defense framework. But again, no one understands better the risk of a company than the process owner or the process team, right? So I will start with this, but it's not the only one. That's why the second and the third line exists. So maybe the technology team will identify, I don't know, 5 risks, because they are in their context. They only see their day-to-day, their business as usual. But maybe the second line of defense, in this case, the risk manager, the risk team, or the compliance officers, or whatever in the second line of defense, understand the approach a little bit wider. So maybe as psychologists, they going to ask them, okay, perfect that you can see these 5 risks, and have you taken account these other 2? Because maybe because you know a little bit more of the context, or maybe you are reading more about risks, and that's okay. That doesn't seem that the first line do their job badly. That's exactly the point. That maybe they are the first line of defense. They identify 5, and you help them to identify another 2, and maybe in the third line of defense, they saw a third one, another one. And that's perfect, because in this case, 3 lines defense better than only 1. And that will be the case. I don't know if that answered your question.
Okay, Alejandro, we have another question from Stephanie. She asked us about how to the heat map save in the software.
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
I think she wants to see the heat map and know how to export, maybe to save it.
Oh, okay. Oh, but that's a very good question. Okay, so we have, if you have in the risk heat map report, in this case, you can put it, you can compare the risk management of your company in the last month, because that's the risk management, that you are moving the risks from inherent to residual, that you are putting controls, that you are reevaluating or reassessment the risks, and maybe you want a comparative map to do that, and this is a risk management that audits want to know, and you can create the report here. Okay, what is the risk created in that period of time? What is the risk level? And you can download this in PDF, PNG for your presentation, or in Excel for your tables, or to create another reports. But you can also, if you maybe you want to change this risk map, maybe you want to customize, you want 3 or whatever. So we're going to deep into risk management, the risk heat map customization, and maybe we don't want to work with 5 per 5. We only want to work with 4. So I want to put this in red, and this is the color that I want for my risk heat map. And I don't want the name severe. This is going to be critical. You always can customize your risk heat map. In this case, in Pirani.
Okay, we have another question from Muti. I hope I pronounced well the name. He asked us about, can you show integration with ChatGPT again?
Of course. So we're going to go into the rigs. And when you want to create the rigs from scratch, from zero, you don't have any idea of the rigs that you want to address. So you can put the name of the rigs, and if you know it again. But with the ChatGPT integration, you're going to click on the suggest rigs, and you need to choose the industry that you work with, because the suggestion will take in account the risk management system that you're working with. Is not the same suggestion if you're doing in the operational risk management or anti-money laundering or information security. In this case, we are in operational risk management. So you choose the industry that you're working with, I don't know, construction. And then you choose the process. It can be marketing, commercial, customer service, financial, technology, accounting, logistics, production. We have all these, okay, maybe the logistics. And you click the suggest, they're going to read all the OpenAI and the ChatGPT information, and based on, again, the risk management system, the industry that you choose, and the process that you choose, they will suggest, in this case, delay in the delivery of raw materials, failure in operational risk system resulting in downtime in production delays, inadequate communication between teams, and you just, if you click any of the suggestion, lack of coordination with the different contractors, then you're going to put the name in the rigs. And then, of course, the measure, the ChatGPT is only for the name, for the name of the risk. The measure is going to be yours, because this information is from the libraries of ChatGPT. They are not reading anything from your company, but the measure of the risk, it depends on your company. Only that. So the measure will be yours, and you may choose, is will be direct or by variables.
Okay, we have a last question of this session. Alberto asks us about what could be a positive impact, how we can manage this in the risk matrix. Could you give us an example, please?
Sure. Maybe, well, I think I gave the very wide approach of this example in my early explanation. And for instance, in Colombia, we are a software as a service company. So when we understand the context of my company and my industry and my country and the regulation of my company, there is a law that the software as a service company don't need to sell the IVA or some. So if we understand that regulation, there is a risk. So it's going to be a different regulation from taxes. So we don't have to charge the taxes for my clients. So if we don't have to to charge the tax of my clients, this is a positive risk, because I'm going to receive more money, or my clients will be able to pay a less price for my product. I don't know if you know what I mean, or maybe an opportunity in the market. Okay, so this will be a free trade agreement between two countries. Maybe I'm in Mauritius, and this will be a free trade agreement between Mauritius and Colombia. So if that's an opportunity, so maybe I can put it in my risk heat map, and I'm going to accept that, because that will give me the opportunity to make better deals or to sell my services in Mauritius. But how we can do that? Understanding the context, not only my company, but the regulatory or the economic changes around me and around my company. And it will be very useful if I will be able to put that in the risk map. And maybe this is going to be green and we're going to accept. So that's a very good question, because for instance, if I want to, in this case, as you can see, the only information that I ask for a risk is the name, the description, if I have the evidence, but we can also create another field to mark the treatment that I want to put in that risk. So that's another very important feature that we have in Pirani. So we go into the settings of the software and in operational risk management, and we're going to create new fields for my company risk management. So for instance, in this case, let's going to see. I'm going to create, oh no, in the rigs, I'm going to create another field that will going to be rigs treatment. And I'm going to put the single selection menu, and I'm going to put avoidance. I'm going to put mitigation. As you can see, everyone, you won't need a technology expert to do this. You will be able to put this in your risk management software very easily. I'm going to put that this will be required. And I'm going to publish. This will be a topic for the next risk management school, but let's face it right now. So we can go to the risk management, and as you can see now in the software, we have the risk treatment, and it's mandatory. And I'm going to put that I'm going to accept this risk. And I know, and then we can filter all the risks of my company. Okay, I have 100 risks, so I only want to address the ones that I want to accept. Or no, show me only the risks that I want to mitigate in order to create controls for that. So that will be a very good way to put it in the receive map. And just in time, because now is in Colombia 11, that we have 1 hour of our risk management. So remember that in the next risk management school, we're going to talk about risk management strategies. We're going to talk about how we can create controls to mitigate those risks and to have the residual risks. In order to talk about the risk management cycle, we're going to deep into the third phase of risk management strategies and control. So thank you very much. See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Alejandro, for your valuable participation in this webinar. Finally, I would love to invite everyone to participate in a short survey that will appear when the meeting ends. This will help us to continue to improve our webinars. Thank you so much again, and see you soon.